Can this wide receiver class continue the historic trend of the last few years, or will we finally have a down year? Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry. And we're back with another summer scouting episode. We're going to be talking about the wide receivers for 2025, talking about what your future first round pick is worth. This is everybody's favorite position for every video. You know, we see the analytics for all the videos, and I don't really check them too much, but all I know is every time we do a wide receiver video, you guys always check it out, and you always watch a ton of it.
Yeah.
You guys love these guys, so hopefully today we're going to do a good job kind of introducing you to a few of these players. Now, I'll just preface this as I'm not the college guy, so Dale knows more about the college players than I do. Some of these guys we did talk about a little bit last year, and they were kind of bigger names, hint with the last guy we're going to talk about. But I know some of them, I know of them, but I haven't watched all the film on all these guys yet. But this is not a rankings episode. This is just an introduction to kind of give you our take on where we would kind of rank these guys in future first value. You know, if we think they're a first round pick, what second is it stacked? You know, we did the running back position last time, and there's like 5 running backs that I'm actually excited about in the first round of next year's draft class. So it's finally a good year for those guys. The position's been needing it really badly, it feels like. So today we're going to get into the receivers. But before we do that, Dale, how we doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Turned 31 yesterday, which would, be July 9th. So feeling great, feeling spunky. I'm feeling exhausted. So permanently exhausted. But other than that, man, doing great. I love talking about college wide receiver.
Yeah, you and everybody else.
But
you and everybody else.
Yeah. There are definitely some fun guys and some guys I've honestly have never heard of. I will say I don't always have. I'm kind of in the middle ground. Like I don't know a lot of I would say I know a lot more than you do about college players, but like with some of these guys, I haven't heard a lot of these guys yet. So I'm excited to take some dives into these guys and see what they're all about and see what we can get for them in rookie draft.
Yeah, and we're using NFL Draft Buzz, so NFLDraftBuzz.com. If you guys want to go check their rankings for everything, they're very useful, I feel like, in the offseason. It's not perfect. We talked about it a lot with the running backs. They're very low on Travion Henderson, for example, where I think he was number 5 on their list, and we talked about it last time, and for me, he's still a top 3 running back in next year's class. So obviously, it's early. I think last year when we did this, and you're saying, what use is this video, right? You're probably thinking that to yourself. But last year, for example, I was really high on Malik Nabers. NFL Draft Buzz had him ranked as their wide receiver 8, I believe, this time last year. And it goes on that he's being rivaled with Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Where is Marvin Harrison that guy, And we all thought he was at the time. Malik Nabers is also that guy. And I remember this time last year being really high on Malik Nabers and saying, man, everything about this guy says he should be an amazing player. I don't know why he's ranked as the wide receiver 8, for example, right? I think he's going to be a steal in your drafts and everything like that. So it does have value, and I do think I like these episodes quite a bit. So before we get into these receivers, and we'll start at number 1 with the consensus number 1. You can follow us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale, or at FF After Dark for the podcast. Hit us up with any Dynasty questions you guys might have, or trade questions, or advice, anything you guys are looking for. We do roster breakdowns for free of charge. If you have a question, if you want us to look at your whole roster and give you our honest opinions on it, feel free, and we'd be happy to break those down. So yeah, just hit us up on Twitter if you're looking for some of that, or if you have any questions, or you just want to say, hey, leave a comment down below in the video. And if you can, while you're there, like the video, subscribe to the channel for all our content. We're trying to pump out 3 a week. We're going to have the live one on Friday. So yeah, content's been flowing, and we appreciate you guys, and we can't do this without you. So That said, let's jump over to our first wide receiver, and that's going to be Luther Burden III from Missouri. Mizzou, Missouri. Are those different schools?
Yeah. Well, it's the
Mizzou?
same school. It's the
Okay,
same
it's just their
school.
nickname,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I always
Kind of.
feel
Yeah.
dumb because I'm like, it's always says Mizzou on their jerseys, but it is Missouri. So, 5'11",
Yeah.
208 pounds. He's a sophomore. You know, he had a very good year last year. Freshman year didn't really do a ton. 45 catches for 375 yards, 6 touchdowns. Last year really broke out. 86 catches for 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Much better season last year in the receiving game. And he's a traditional X type of wide receiver. You know, I think he's kind of got the traditional full package of what he can do for a team. Doesn't really have a lot of weaknesses as of right now in my mind. A little bit of he struggles a little bit against press coverage, but that's a lot of these guys aren't fully used to that. You can learn that at the NFL level, and even this year, he's got a whole nother year to improve that as well. So I like him. I think he's a very, very strong player for a number one. How do you think about Luther Burden III?
Yeah, I definitely agree that he is up there for me. With him getting, it's these accolades of first team SEC, like that does say something, which, I think in college football that there are two very elite conferences, SEC and Big Ten. I will say that sometimes SEC gets a little overhyped with their defenses. Sometimes their defenses are trash, with having these, 5-star athletes. So I will say that he did play a lot of trash defenses. SEC. I think Missouri's in the SEC West, or in the East, which
Mm-hmm.
he plays Vandy, he plays Kentucky, plays Tennessee, all these teams that in the past decade or so are haven't had a good defense. Vandy hasn't been good ever in their entire existence. That's beside the
There
point.
you go.
But so I think he does need to work on separation skills a little bit. Like he's very exceptional in space, which he'll probably need some of that. In his rookie year in the NFL. To get a good feel for everything, stuff like that. So I kind of see him like the Garrett Wilson kind of type, that like a guy that kind of can create in space. He has good hands, stuff like that. So I kind of see him at end of the spectrum personally.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So where would you rank him right now in terms of his value?
I would say he's probably. I think the problem is that we don't have. I don't feel we have a lot of good quality quarterbacks coming in. I think we were spoiled this last year and having 3 or 4 first round quarterbacks. So, um, I think with that, I think he's going to be a high end first. Like he's probably going to be taken probably within the first three. Um, do I think he's necessarily worth that? I mean, that's still sight to be seen, but that's probably what you're gonna have to pay to get him.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, he's I agree with you. I think ultimately he'll be up there, especially with a weaker quarterback class on paper, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see what he can
Yep.
do. But yeah, he's definitely someone that I think is going to slot in as a top 3, 4 guy. It all depends what Quinshon Judkins, how high he ultimately goes. You know, I think he's going to be the number one running back. Is it going to be, are people willing to take a running back number one overall anymore? Are we past those days? That's a big question for me. All right, let's go to the next guy.
I
And
mean,
oh,
I
go
think
ahead.
it's the. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, is there a lag? There might be a
Oh,
little bit
sorry.
of a lag here.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I have a tiny lag on my end. So,
okay.
so I mean, I would say that it's probably gonna be pretty rare to see a running back go number one. But Judkins is really good. Like we both love Trevion, and we love a lot of these running backs coming in. It's not to say that this wide receiver class is weak in any means, but it's just that the running backs are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
So when there is a potential stud, like people go.
Right. For sure. For sure. All right, let's go to the next guy here. It's going to be, I'm going to butcher this name. I hate these names, dude. I'm so bad with this. Tatario McMillan. Tatario? Tatario McMillan. Let's say that.
That sounds
From Arizona. Now, this is a guy that I
pretty
actually,
close.
I like him a lot. I think he's kind of a sleeper to be the number one. I think he's very good. I think he's a little bit underrated. 6'5", 210 pounds, plays for Arizona. Smaller conference, but amazing stats last year. Now, he had a better freshman year, I think, than Luther Burden. 39 catches for 702 yards. Very explosive player. 8 touchdowns as a freshman for Arizona. This last year, he played 13 games, 90 catches, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. So very explosive, averaging 16.3 yards per catch, which is just nuts for the college level. That's very good value, especially with the target volume that he's getting as well. So something to look at and to enjoy with him. But yeah, what do you think about McMillan here? The one downside for me,
I will. Yeah.
the one downside for me is just that, he's for 6'5", he's kind of like a Drake London type of build for the NFL level. But I do think that he lacks separation, and that's what most people have said about him. And you kind of see it on tape. Even his highlight plays, a lot of them are contested catches. Now the question is that bad throws by the quarterback, or is that his inability to separate? Is he kind of slow for a big guy? And if it's the slow part, that scares me a lot. If it's bad quarterback play, that's forgivable in my mind. So the only downside is kind of a scary one, but everything else, man, it's just so fun to watch when he's playing out there.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear what you're saying. I was first going to say that you are a sizist, a notable sizist. So,
Like them big
like,
boys.
so,
Big boys.
so like if we get a guy that's like is like remotely over 6 foot, Calvin starts drooling.
Yes, sir.
So, so like this guy has a sight, has the size. It's the way like he has exceptional hands, but I do agree it is worrisome if he's not separating because
Mm-hmm.
it's going to get worse in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's
For
the best
sure.
athletes. It's the best. It's just going to get worse against these Pac-12 cornerbacks that are it's I didn't really watch him against Travis Hunter, who
Right.
is a very phenomenal cornerback. But a lot of these guys aren't making it in the NFL. I'll be honest. I'm not saying they're trash, but they're not NFL worthy players. So I think it's concerning that he may not have the short area quickness that you really. It's a shiftiness that you really want to see out of a top end wide receiver.
Yeah.
So that's I think once we get to I I, I don't always trust college tape. I think we need to see him at the combine
Mm-hmm.
and to see what his what those stat or like what it's a 3 cone drill and the
Right.
10-yard splits and all like that. If we see that and that's in a lower percentile, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a
Yeah.
big problem, and his draft stock is going to because right now he's kind of projected to be like a mid first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's with the size and stuff like that. So, I think it's gonna be interesting to see how he does this year. With they are gonna be transitioning to I think Big 12.
Okay. Okay.
Arizona's gonna beat. Um, I'll double check that. So, um,
But yeah, he's someone that's going to be fun to watch. Obviously he's got a whole nother season to get bigger, get better, get stronger, everything like that. So we'll see
yeah,
what he can do this year. Again, the questions kind of come down to, was it more the quarterback or was it more him? And I think if
him,
we see a lot
yeah,
of contested catches yet again this year, it's going to lead to a little bit more of a red flag. But yeah, he's someone that is very fun to watch. He makes those contested catches look like child's play. So just something to think
Yeah,
about there. But yeah, he's a fun one to watch. So all right, let's
agreed.
transition to our number 3 guy. You're gonna love him, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, OSU. 6'1", 206. We kind of broke him down last year quite a bit. He ultimately went back to the Ohio and back to college. So we already have a good feeling on what he can do. But last year he missed a lot of time because of injury. Even when he did play when he was active, he wasn't fully healthy. So much more of a down year last year than the year before. So going back to his sophomore year in 2022, 74 catches for 1,150 yards, 10 touchdowns. This last year, only 41 catches for 500 yards. Big dip there in terms of efficiency and production. 4 touchdowns still last year, but ultimately you saw a big drop off from the quarterback play as well. So I think he's going to be the number 1. I will say the one thing that scares me about Emeka is just that I think he's a slot guy, and what you're looking for him is basically a Amon-Ra St. Brown, where he's a slot guy that is still very productive for the NFL, and he can definitely be that, but I'm not sure, given the class, if I would be taking him in the first round as of right now. If he has a big bounce back year this year, that might change things for me, but I just think that the upside is there with a lot of these other guys. With the running backs, I already talked about it. I think there's 5 running backs that I'd be willing to take in the first round. 2 wide receivers already, with a few guys here, and then quarterbacks obviously in Superflex. Not in Superflex, okay, he's probably like definitely a first round in 12 teams, but in a Superflex leagues, I'm just not sure if I'd be willing to take him as a top 12 guy.
And I get that. I think the biggest thing for me is injury concerns.
Right.
He's been injured. Um, I'm just gonna say a very fun nickname. If people like nicknames, it's E squared.
There you
He has
go.
E. So like that's an easy way to remember him instead of butchering his name. But I mean, I really like Ibuka. It's just the biggest thing for him is availability. He's a very smart player.
Yeah.
Um, I also think too something that could be interesting is that he doesn't necessarily have the straight line speed. Like
Right.
he's quick. He's quick, but he's not game breaking, which I noticed quite a bit, watching a lot of Ohio State games. So, but I will say that he does show up in big and against big primetime opponents.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to watch out for where, he's playing in these big games and doing well where some of these guys aren't playing good competition and still not producing. So, I don't think again, I think the numbers may lie a little bit about Igbuka and stuff like that, but I think a lot of what he does is going to help him in the NFL. Like he's a very smart guy. Like like he's already drawing comparisons to like Chris Godwin, Keenan Allen types. So I think he's a very creative player and he knows how to help his quarterback, which I think Will Howard is a much better upgrade than Kyle McCord. Speaking of Kyle McCord, Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of crapped on him a little bit in an
Hey,
interview.
he defended
Um,
him, if
because,
anything. He defended him.
anyways, that's because he felt bad for him because he's at
Yeah.
Syracuse.
I
That's beside the
mean,
point.
the Giants threw
But
him
but
under the bus and backed it up. Like, the Giants had no.
I think he's a good size. I think he's I mean 6'1". I think
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah
6'1",
6'1", 206. Like he's a
206.
really
Yeah.
good size. If he runs in the 4.3s, that's gonna be great.
He will run in the 4.3s.
Yeah.
It's
So
Ohio State born and
yes,
bred.
yeah. He's yeah he yes he's gonna be fine. I think he's gonna be a mid first round, probably second round player. I do agree if he gets injured, like like if he has a JSN kind of season,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a little concerning. But he has fantastic hands, a really good football IQ. He's
Right.
he's a quick twitch athlete. Compared to what we're talking about with the other guy. I can't even remember his last name. With
McMillan.
McMillan from
Yeah,
Arizona. Yeah, yeah. So I think I would rather have that than McMillan. So I think that's where I would. I think that's probably where you and I are going to differ.
sure, sure. All right, so Mika E squared might be a first round pick, but it's close. It's close. Let's go to the number 4 guy, which is going to be Trey Harris with Ole Miss, and 6'2", 205. Super senior. He's a 5th-year senior here, redshirt senior. I guess that's the terminology for it. He's someone that's interesting. It always scares me when you have these older guys that are finally starting to make plays. But if you look at his game logs for the last couple of years, he transferred from Louisiana Tech, played his first 3 years at Louisiana Tech to Ole Miss, and last 2 years, his last year at Louisiana Tech, 65 catches for 935 yards, 10 touchdowns. This last year, 54 catches for 985 yards and 8 touchdowns. So it's been a consistent 2 years now of good production from him. And it doesn't scare me so much that he's older because he's had 2 years now of good production, but I always hate seeing these super old guys. Like, if you couldn't get it done before, are you really going to be able to get it done now? You know what I mean? So that's the only thing that
Right.
scares me with Trey Harris. He is fun to watch, but he, again, kind of like McMillan, doesn't really have amazing separation skills. He's better of a route runner where he kind of creates distance off the line. But if he doesn't get that, if they kind of shadow him, if he's against really good corners, he just gets absolutely shut down. So it's scary a little bit, but he's fun. I'll say that much.
Yeah. Well, he's going to be playing with a pretty good quarterback in Jackson Dart.
Yep.
At Ole Miss, which is going to help him out, but I don't really feel the offense really. I mean, I felt a lot of what Ole Miss does is a lot of either run the ball with option plays or
Mm-hmm.
the play action.
Right.
So, and throw the deep ball, to Harris, I guess. So, I think if he does keep progressing in, his skills and, having these good releases off the line, stuff like that, having good hands, it's being able to catch the ball in traffic. Like that is really important.
Mm-hmm.
With him being, and also if he's really good in the red zone, like that's where I mean, that's where like the meat and potatoes is, in
Right.
the last, in the last,
First
20,
downs and
30 yards,
then
obviously.
touchdowns, right?
Yeah, yeah, honestly. So, he's a very physical guy. I don't think he has much of a route tree, which that's not too concerning.
Right.
But I think he lacks some of the nuance of being a wide receiver because he's never really necessarily had to. So, um, you know, age for me doesn't necessarily matter. I know a lot of people get all enamored or all caught up in him being an SEC, and he's a great player, but you just have to be aware of the offense that they're playing in, stuff like that. So, I really feel that his skill sets are more of like a West Coast offense, or like what we are talking about, like with play action. I don't think he's not. I think it's either it's a pass friendly or you're throwing the ball deep. So, um, I think he can be good for these. It's these contested catches. He's able to leverage a little bit, but um, I think it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be more interesting where he would land in the draft. I think probably for me he'd be a little bit lower. Like a good tier, at least a tier below. Like Egbuka or Burden for me. Um, so I mean that's more my concern. I don't necessarily care about his age. I mean there's a thing with breakout age and the probability of people or of players being good in the NFL, but I don't think that's necessarily a huge worry. It's just something to be.
Right, right. So, yeah, definitely something to keep in mind. And I will say one of the nicest things about him is I think he might have the best hands in the entire class. Like he has amazing hands, but scares me again with the with the catching or the separation that he has,
Yeah.
contested catching
Yep.
is no way to live in the NFL. So, yeah,
Okay.
we'll see what he can do. Right now, I don't think I would be comfortable taking him in the first of rookie drafts, but we'll see what ultimately he can do.
I would think he's probably a fringe first round into the second round guy. Like I would say he's probably
Yeah,
1 to 2 again, he's 1 or 2 tiers below
he's like a
the
Keon
top
Coleman to me
guys that
right
we
now.
talked to.
Yeah. Yep.
That's very fair.
Yep.
That's very fair. Yeah, it's someone that I mean personally, I don't want on my team. I get why people like him, get it, but
Hmm.
also kind of hands off on that.
Alrighty, so let's go to the next guy, which is going to be Evan Stewart with
Oregon.
Oregon. That's right. Oh, this is why. Oh gosh, Oregon, dude. Oh god, we're doing it again. We're doing it again. Troy Franklin 2.0. Let's go. 6 foot 175. They just cannot have any. Oregon.
Size
Oregon.
is Calvin.
Get a
If it
better
makes you-
strength and
if-
conditioning coach. Like, come on. There's no
If it makes you
reason
feel
everyone
better,
should be this small. There's no
If it
reason
makes you
for
feel
it.
better, like he did go to Texas A&M his
Yeah,
first couple
no,
years,
no.
so and he transferred out. I think he was in the recruiting class where Jimbo Fisher spent a bunch of NIL money and stuff like
Right,
that, and got all
right.
these 5-star prospects that then transferred the next year and or the year after. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, like he is one of those athletes that came in. Yeah, if you want to tell us all about Evan Stewart, have at it, Kevin.
Sure. So yeah, he did play for Texas A&M for the first 2 seasons. Transferred out, 10 games as a rookie, 53 catches for 650 yards. 8 games last year for 38 catches, 500 yards. Decent average there, but only 6 touchdowns. He's someone that's going to be talked about a lot. I think Oregon's going to be in line for a little bit of a regression this year. So if he can still make a name for himself in Oregon, you don't think so? Why not?
Oregon's going to be one of the top teams this year.
Really? Who's their
they're gonna be-
quarterback?
Yes,
Who's their
Dylan
quarterback?
Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel.
I don't know the name very well.
He was at UCF for a couple years, and then he went to Oklahoma for a couple years, and then he just transferred out to Oregon. He's like a super
Oh,
senior at this point.
I gotcha.
It's someone that we're going to talk about potentially that we'll talk about in an upcoming episode.
With the quarterbacks.
As a potential, yeah, it's with.
I gotcha. Yeah, and that's where I don't see all the transfers. So if he just transferred to Oregon, I just look at last year, and unfortunately, they don't show the new players, the new rosters. So I don't know all the new ones. But all right, fair enough. I thought Oregon was going to be in trouble because they lost Bo Nix, and they've had him for a couple years now. I think he was a senior, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so like Oregon's going to be good again. They have a lot of returning players.
there you go.
I mean,
They lost,
but
they
a lot
lost
of
some
it
good
is,
ones. They did
but
lose some good ones.
a lot of it too is learning the system.
Right.
Oregon is. I mean, it's not necessarily like the Chip Kelly Oregon that we have. That we grew up knowing.
No,
It's
no.
it's the wet and wild. It's the fast offense. It's similar to that.
It's a
And I think
goofy
Dylan,
offense. It's goofy.
it can be. It
Yeah.
can be. It can be. And I think Dylan Gabriel is very Bo Nix like, very mid.
Sure.
So he's solid. He's very solid.
Right.
He is very solid, and he really helped Oklahoma the past couple years, somewhat relevant. So I think for Evan Stewart, I think a lot of what makes him good is he's very shifty.
Mm-hmm.
He has good hands. He's very good after the catch.
Right.
Again, his biggest thing is his size.
Yep.
I do agree there comes a point where you have to be big enough
Right.
and strong enough in the NFL to be able to do that. And he's not really a 50-50 ball guy because he is so small. He
does lack play
Yeah.
strength quite heavily.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, I do think he's a good player. But the problem is, his biggest problem is going to be Troy Franklin. If Troy Franklin can be good in the NFL, he has a chance because, there's a reason why Troy Franklin fell to the 4th round. And I just think that you have a guy that's the similar build. He's going to be extremely fast. I'll give him that. Troy Franklin, his biggest problem was he was not that fast for being as small as he was. Like, he had a very
Yeah.
mediocre 40 time. Oh, he was sick, except he
Yeah.
did every workout while he was sick. Like, come on, get out of
Right.
here.
Right.
Everyone's holding out of these combines nowadays. You're not doing the combine if you're sick. Get out of here. You say that after you had a bad performance. But Troy Franklin's biggest problem was he was slow for his size. If this guy can be fast, like if he can run like a 4.3, low 4.3s, that'll definitely help a lot with his draft potential and everything like that. Ultimately, it all comes down to draft potential. I just think the problem is we just saw this exact same player archetype with Troy Franklin from the same team a year ago. So
Yeah.
it scares me.
And that's very fair. So I think a lot of it is going to be how the tape looks
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
I think in the Big Ten, he's going to play a lot better defenses than the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
we week in and week out, he's gonna play. I think they play Michigan, they play Ohio State, they play Penn State. Like they're playing a lot of top
Yeah.
tier teams this
Yep.
year, in the Big Ten. And I think if he is able to play well consistently
Mm-hmm.
in games, I think that's gonna bode well for his stock. I'm a little concerned about that. Um, so I think buyer beware right now. Like if you're doing Devy leagues and like all of these degenerates doing Devy leagues
Yeah.
are out of their mind right now. But hey, is what it is. But I think he is a guy to watch. I think we also need to see how like the likes of like Xavier Worthy too.
Mm-hmm.
But I think where Xavier Worthy is a little different is that he had the breakout age
He's
compared
also
to
smaller.
Evan Stewart.
He's
He
also
is small.
smaller.
Well. I'm just saying. I'm just saying for a small guy.
Right. Yeah. No, he's Tank
So
Dell-ish.
yeah,
But
so
hey, you can
so
always
yeah,
point to Tank Dell, right?
that's very true. So I'm not necessarily worried about the college system. I'm
Mm-hmm.
worried about how his tape looks, how he is against these top tier opponents. And I know Texas A&M was pretty crappy last year, pretty crappy, and they have
Mm-hmm.
been the past couple years.
He
So
did get
I
out of there
think
for a
with the
reason, right?
yes, and that's normally true. So like he's going to have a much improved quarterback, an improved system, like a stable, well, like, and he's going to have all the money in the world from Phil Knight,
Mm-hmm.
and all these NIL deals. So like he's going to, like he has all the opportunity this year to do something great.
Right.
So let's see what he does. I think he's going to struggle a little bit, but what guy on this list that we haven't talked or that we've talked about and haven't talked about isn't going to struggle at some point?
Yeah. So would you be willing to take him in the first as of right now? Like, I don't think he's a
No,
first
no,
rounder. So
no. I'm kind of with like him and Trey Harris. I think like I guess I kind of view him like a Ricky Pearsall or like a Jermaine Burton. Like they're kind of like a project. Like they're
right.
very interesting. They're very intriguing. But I don't want to spend a first on these guys, at
Right.
least right now.
Right. So as of right now, the only three that I'd be, E squared, I'm fringe on him. I know you're more confident on him than I am. So let's say three receivers that I'd be willing to take in the first, and we'll talk about a couple names that are kind of dark horses here for the last three players. But yeah, it is looking like it's a little bit more of a down season for wide receiver. Finally, it might, we'll see once we get finished with this. Now, there is a big name that we haven't talked about. We're going to talk about him last, but we have no idea whether he's going to even be a receiver in the NFL. So, spoiler alert, save your last pick here. But the next guy we're going to talk about, player number 6, wide receiver number 6, Isaiah Bond, and this guy. Yeah, the funniest thing is he is like basically Marvin Mims to me from Oklahoma. Like that's who he reminds me so much of when you just look at the tape, you look at the build, like everything. And the funny thing is I was thinking about that before this and I just pulled up his player comparison, right, on NFL Draft Buzz. 80%, 81% Marvin Mims. So it's just like this guy, that's who he is. He is Marvin Mims. But he's 5'11", 182, extremely fast. His estimated 40 time is 4.28, which is just flying. The dude has crazy speed. I think he was a track star too. I think I remember hearing at one point in time he was a track superstar in high school. So I think he did the 40 and he had like a almost 10-second 100-yard dash. So like he can fly. The dude is Yeah,
That's nuts.
he has wheels. So Isaiah Bond, his stats are a little bit under, they're a little bit lacking as of right now. He is with Texas now. He transferred from Alabama, played in Alabama from 2022 to 2023. Now, if you've been following the college game at all, and I've been following a little bit, but I do know Alabama struggled at the quarterback position. Nick Saban has gone as well. So you saw a mass exodus of players from Alabama this year with Nick Saban retiring.
Right.
What's the rushing guy's name? We're going to get to him with the quarterbacks, but the quarterback for Alabama,
Jalen Milrow.
Jalen Milrow, and
Jalen
he's
Milrow.
he's
Yeah.
very much
Yeah.
a
And yeah, he's like the poorest man's Cam Newton.
right. Yes. Yep. That's pretty funny.
To be honest.
Yep.
To be honest. So
I would not have done that comparison, but it is pretty accurate. So,
well, it is pretty accurate. Like, I mean, he's not very good at passing at all. You
Right.
know, like if you saw like if you saw like a lot of Jermaine Burton tape, it was a
Yep.
lot of 50-50 balls. It was a lot of chucking it and saying, I hope you catch it.
yeah, right.
So and that's probably how it's going to be next year, you know, for it's for the Crimson Tide. So, you know, it's probably good he got out so he can play with a potential, I don't want to say superstar with Quinn, but you know, like a potential starting quarterback, you know, with Quinn Ewers. So I think he has his best chance to be able to do well. Like he's still going to play in SEC against top tier talent, which I think is really important too. So I think I'm really interested to see what he does. You know, like he is a guy that has like the short area quickness that we like to see. Um, you know, he's toughness. You know, he's tough. He's physical, and I think that's going to really bode well in the NFL. You know, I think the only thing is, you know, he's a little bit of balance problems. You know, and just, you know, he's quick, but he's not necessarily shifty. Like he is a runner, like you were saying. Like he I think he won like the 100 and 200 meter in the, you know,
Hmm.
in high school in Texas.
Yeah,
You know,
he is
which is great. You know,
5-star
he's
state.
more of a yes, yeah. So like he's more of a linear speed guy compared to a
Right.
side to side speed guy. So I think that's something to watch. You know, I bet we're going to see a lot of him catching 75-yard passes. You know, from Ewers. You know, I can see a lot of that and people getting really hot and bothered by that.
Yeah.
But I
He
think
kind of fills the role of Xavier Worthy for this team, right? Where
yes he
obviously
does.
Xavier Worthy gets drafted by the Chiefs in the first round. They traded up for him. Now I was just looking because the site that I use for the receivers does not have 2024, and honestly, it's a pretty light group. So I was just looking at the other receivers here for Texas this year, and it's, not a lot of notable names. So he definitely has a chance to make a name for himself down in Texas. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is a name that people have heard for a long time. Arch Manning's there as well, that I know people are itching to get him out there playing quarterback. The sponsors, especially, they're paying a lot of money for Arch for the NIL and everything. So I know they want to see him sooner rather than later, but you definitely see an upgrade from the quarterback position for Isaiah Bond, and I want to see what he can do. Goes to a team that knows how to use him as well. I think Texas, you're high on Oregon, but I do think Texas is going to be one of those top teams yet again. And yeah, I'm excited to see what this guy can do. And he's definitely a dark horse of a name that could potentially break out this year. And just keep him in mind. As of right now, I don't think I'd be willing to stake a first rounder. Now, obviously, somebody's going to have to be a first rounder. There's 12 of them every year. It's always so stupid when we get into the draft season, like, oh, I only have 20 first round grades. Well, that's great. There's 32 first rounders every year. So this is the dumbest argument of all time. Now, you can word that. I understand what you're trying to say by that, but ultimately you will have to spend a first round pick on somebody, right? So it's always just the dumbest argument. Oh, I only have 10 first round draft grades. Well, your grades are dumb.
Right.
Man.
No, yeah, and I understand that. I think for him, I think a lot of us are going to be in. I think he's going to run really well and
Yeah.
do well in some of the
He'll be
combine
explosive.
stuff.
Yep.
Yes. I just know that typically these. I don't like. He's not like what I think his name was Godwin, something like that, who was like an Olympic sprinter, like he
Oh,
was
Marquise
legit.
Goodwin.
Uh, Goodwin, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So I don't think he's to that tier, but I still think
Right.
he's really good.
Oh yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, in the sprinter wise, and that doesn't translate to the NFL.
Not
So
always. We'll see what he can do. And
not normally. Yes,
yeah.
yes. I'm very interested to see what he does in Texas. I think he's going to be playing against a little bit better defenses
Yep.
compared to the
Well, Alabama,
old
you
Big
play
12.
some good guys.
You do play a couple good defenses. Only a couple.
And
There's
you
only a couple
usually,
good
I
teams in
mean,
the SEC.
usually Alabama makes
So
it to the playoff. Usually,
that's true.
so
That's
but
true.
we'll see. I do agree with you. I think that'll be a good test for him this year. So keep him on your radar. Good name to know. All right, another good name to know is going to be Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. 6'4", my guy. 209, big guy. The big strong guys. These are my type. These are my people. Even though I'm not that big or strong, so whatever. But he's someone that I think is a little interesting. Oklahoma, they always seem to have a guy, like just always seem to have a guy. Did nothing as a freshman. I don't think he's ultimately going to come out in this year's class. I think he's going to go back, and we'll see what he can do this year. It's going to be a big question mark of how much he gets done in Oklahoma this year. But 38 catches last year for 798 yards and 10 touchdowns. Very Marvin Mims like. Who else was with Oklahoma? Was it I forget who the big name was before Marvin Mims, but the last big name wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb. Yes. These guys, when you get the number one for Oklahoma, they can put them in good positions. They always seem to know how to make that number one wide receiver really shine for this team. So Nick Anderson is going to be someone to watch this year, and I could see a big step up. I mean, averaging 21 yards per catch is nuts, dude. Nuts. So I see that shows you the speed.
I also think he had a very exceptional like the quarterback that was at Oklahoma was Dylan Gabriel that we
Right.
talked about already. Like,
Oh,
he's
right,
a
right.
5-star. Yeah, he's not there anymore. Like they're having a new guy in Jackson Arnold, which I'm sure he does have some rapport with. Like Arnold's been there a couple years, but I think it's gonna be interesting to see how Oklahoma transitions to the SEC. I think it's gonna be a rough year for Oklahoma.
Right.
I think it's gonna be rough. Like 7-5, 6-6, kind of rough.
I don't know if that really
For
matters for the stats on the field,
all
though.
of you Sooner fans. It doesn't, but well, it can. It can because
It could be
if
good
the
for
offense
them,
isn't
actually.
moving,
Well, it could be good if
could.
they're
It
they're
could.
behind, if they're chucking a lot more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see how he does. In a new conference with quarterback.
Right.
So
If he does well, though,
I think
he's the number one dark horse for me to be a first round pick. When I was looking through these guys, I think that he has a very strong case to be a sleeper pick that in a year's time, you're going to be like, man, that guy is really freaking good, dude. And, he has the potential to be a first round draft pick next year. I'm willing to stake.
Right.
Obviously, I had good luck with Neighbors last year. I kind of like the peripherals and everything like that with Neighbors. I like the peripherals with this guy. He's a little bit raw, but I do think that there's some potential there. That's why the rawness is the biggest reason why I think he'll ultimately go back. One, you already kind of laid it out, right? They're going to struggle probably this year with the transition to the SEC. So struggling year, you have another year of eligibility. You didn't play as a rookie at all anyway. So as a freshman, so might as well just go back and try one more time and put 3 good years together. But we'll see. He's a dark horse for me, but I like it on paper.
Yeah. I mean, all of it's there. I just think he needs more tape. Like he needs more time to develop a little bit.
Yes. Yep.
And I think I think he'll. Well, it's one big thing is that not a lot of college receivers do is block. I can block.
Yeah. Yes.
Exceptional. It's something I look for. I mean, I see it a lot. Watching football. It's the wide receivers have to block.
Yep.
They have to.
Yep.
And they have to know how to. So that's something I watch a lot and something that I like to see my a wide receiver, I'm picking, being a willing blocker, stuff like that. And so I think that bodes well to him getting more targets, more things coming his way because he's, being a team player,
Right.
having these high IQ plays. But I think I just think he needs to come back for probably another year after this to
Yep.
kind of develop a little bit more. Like develop it's the quickness, the balance. It's more the nuances
Right.
that he needs to catch up on.
Yep. We'll see. We'll see. If he has a breakout year, though, he's 100% going to the NFL. So he's already a projected second round pick. So if he has a really good year, I think he'll go and he has the potential. So, all right, well, let's talk about the last guy we're going to talk about here. Number 8 at wide receiver. Maybe. I don't know if he's going to be a receiver or if he's going to be a cornerback. So Travis Hunter with Colorado. And honestly, I think he's a good receiver. I really do. I think he's a really, really good receiver. The problem is he's also a really good cornerback. He's a really good cornerback. The other problem is he's splitting his time between both positions and burning himself out. And also, as the old saying goes, he's a jack of all trades, master of none. That is what that's what he's been so far. He's not a supreme receiver. He's also not a supreme cornerback. He's really freaking good at both positions, but he's not like the blue chip player at either position. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be really interested to see what they do with him this year in Colorado. And, just a little bit on Travis Hunter. He was the number 1 prospect coming out into college. And, I don't know much about college, but I even knew this. And he chose to go to Deion Sanders. Where was Deion before Colorado? Jackson State, right?
Hold on. Travis Hunter actually committed to Florida State first. And then,
right. Yes.
And then he decommitted and went to Jackson State for a year, which if any, college football degenerate knows, is not in the NC, like it's not. I mean, it's in but it's not in Division 1A.
Right.
It's the lower division, even at that. So like he's playing against, like I guess if you could, he's playing against like North Dakota State kind of team.
Literally
if
nobodies.
People know that. A lot of nobodies. And he played really well. I think it's gonna be interesting to see. A lot of people are hyped up on Colorado. Their roster,
it's okay.
Trash.
It's okay.
Trash, Calvin. I think Colorado is one of the most overhyped teams.
I agree. I don't think it's amazing. I just think it's okay.
So I think Hunter needs to. I think this season, he needs to try to decide what he wants to do.
Yes.
Because I don't think he's going to have enough stamina to do both.
Yeah.
In my opinion. In my opinion. So, he's a very exceptional athlete. He's fantastic. He's good overall. I think another beef I have is that, I mean, again, I'm big on big on college stuff like that. And with the new NCAA game coming out, he is ranked he's ranked ahead of Luther Burden that we talked about in the wide receivers. So they're projecting him to potentially be a wide receiver, but I think his skills, I think he's just as athletic for you. He's a fantastic athlete.
Yes.
And I know we're saying a lot of negatives about the kid, but he's great.
Oh yeah, he is great. Super good. So, he's small. He is a little bit smaller, 6'1", 185. So let me lay out some of his stats here.
Yep,
this last year with Colorado, obviously he goes to a Division I school, although it's still Colorado. It's not a superstar school. Played 9 games, 57 catches, 721 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns. He's good, but he's also, he did get banged up last year, missed a couple of games. He played a lot of games on the defensive side as well. He had 30 tackles, no sacks, 3 interceptions, which was decent. But yeah, it's not great. It's not great to see him burning from both ends. Obviously, you've got Deion out there and just saying, "Hey, we got to do what we got to do to win."
And along with that, it's not necessarily just burning both ends. Like you're not developing your craft as well because you're on both sides of the coin here, man. Like,
which is ironic. which is ironic because if he chose to just be a receiver, like he understands the mindset of a cornerback, right? So you could be so good. And the same as cornerback, right?
100%.
Because he plays wide receiver, he could understand the mindset on how to be such a good cornerback. But he needs to pick one. I do believe he needs to pick one if he wants to make, a super name for himself this year.
And he's this fantastic athlete, and like we need to see he's going to be facing a little bit more stable talent. I mean, they're going to be going to the Big 12.
Right.
So, they're not going to be playing necessarily high end talent. I mean, like with Oklahoma and Texas going away. I mean, but they're still going to be playing, like TCU. They're still going to be playing like Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And it's these.
Some
I mean,
good
not saying
matchups
Arizona's
for
a
him
great
to
school.
get some stats.
Yeah. It's some decent, but it's gonna be the wild wild west out there, literally. So,
Yep.
I think it's gonna be interesting to see how good this team is, and to see. I'm more intrigued to see how they do throughout the year,
Mm-hmm.
because if they're not playing good, I almost wonder if he's gonna shut it down.
Yeah, it's possible.
I would be intrigued to see that.
I mean, this
Because
guy
I
is
know a
like
lot
a
of
future
players.
New England Patriot. Well, we don't have Bill anymore, so he's
God,
a
I
future
hope not.
Dallas Cowboy. We'll put it that way when Bill Belichick's the coach.
Right, right. But I think this guy can be elite, but like we haven't seen it against good competition.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%.
That's where we haven't seen it get, and I don't think we're necessarily going to see that a lot in Colorado. I'll pull up Colorado.
Yeah, so obviously, as of right now, you have no idea if this guy's going to be a first round receiver or not for fantasy football,
Right.
because he might not even be a receiver. I do think ultimately he'll pick one. He might in the NFL play two-way a little bit, kind of like I forget the guy for the New England Patriots, our nickel corner that is super fast.
I know who you're talking about.
I just forget his name. But they used him as a receiver a couple times. He's so fast and so small. He was able to pop off a couple of long breakaway touchdowns. But I think ultimately he's going to commit to wide receiver. The paychecks for wide receivers nowadays, man, are just so insane. Like, why would you ever go to be a cornerback?
I know. No, I agree. And it's the toughest team I think Colorado's going to play is either Nebraska or Utah.
That's not bad. It's not bad for stats.
But it's still pretty mid.
Yeah,
pretty mid.
I agree. It's not good competition, but it's good for him to.
Not good.
Yeah, it's good
Oh,
for
it
him to
is.
put up receiving stats. If that, to make a name for yourself as a receiver. So we'll see what he does. We'll see what he chooses. If he chooses to be a wide receiver specifically, like only wide receiver, I am willing to take him in the first round of a rookie draft next year. I think that he's that special of an athlete. So, he'd probably slot in if he was only a wide receiver right around 4 for me, maybe 4 or 5.
I have them at 3 or 4 because I
Yeah.
don't like some of these guys.
Right.
I feel a lot of these guys are
They're unproven. That's fair.
They are. And the same with Travis Hunter. He is.
Yes.
He is.
Yep.
To be honest. So, I think I like his overall skills better than some of these guys. I think he's a freak athlete and he can do a lot of things. I just need to see it against competition.
There you go. So that's all the wide receivers. If you guys did make it this far in the video and you're not watching the recording, if you're watching this live, I do apologize. I think at the beginning I had too many tabs open and it was actually slowing down my internet connection. It said that we had kind of some issues, and that might have been causing the lag with you as well. Or I was just, we just got the internet replaced last week, so who knows? I might be having some issues. But if you made it this far, I apologize for any hiccups early on in the stream. If you guys are watching the VOD, then you guys didn't hear anything, so it doesn't matter. But let us know down in the comments below if there's any names of these big receivers that we're missing. But as of right now, I would have to say, and you can give your thoughts here in just a second, this receiving class as a whole does seem to be a little bit more mid, right? More mediocre, except for I do like Luther Burden at the top. I like McMillan at the top. Travis Hunter, if he goes to be full-time receiver, at the top. So there's definitely some splash names, but I do think that there's a lot of depth of unproven guys there this year, and it's not the good kind of depth. It's the 2022 kind of depth where it's like, I don't know if these guys are ever going to be useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think for NFL, they're going to be fine.
For fantasy. Yeah.
For fantasy, I think it's going to be a little rougher than what we've had in the past couple years.
Yeah, we've been spoiled, man. People thought it was never going to end. So spoiled. It's, you've got 3, 4, potentially 5 first-round wide receivers, 5 first-round running backs, and then, in a super flex, obviously you'll have a couple of quarterbacks. So quarterbacks will be fun. We're going to do that next week. We'll try and do it live, and again, I'll try and not have terrible internet connection at the start of the live. Hopefully Friday the live goes off without a hitch. We'll do a weekly recap and a live mock draft this Friday night. So hopefully you guys join us for that. But Dale, any last thoughts?
Send it on home.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. Thanks for checking it out. Your favorite position, future wide receivers, how valuable are they? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. You can find us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale, or at FF After Dark for the podcast. We appreciate you guys. If you can, one last time, like the video, subscribe to the channel for all of our content, and check out all of our stuff. We're going to be continuing to pump it out, and we're almost training camp. I think training camps start like next week, so some of them for the rookie training camps. So it's going to be a good time. Good times. So that said, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, have a good night.
And we all got dreams. We all want things. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?